Hey everyone, welcome to the Underswell. I'm Derek Sabori. Thanks for being here. Right, there's our countdown, our 3, 2, 1 countdown. We're live on this side. Michael Marckx, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks, Derek. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday to you too. I'm looking forward to the weekend. How about you?
Yeah, weather's going to be nice. There's been a little surf.
There has
I'm gonna ride
been.
my bike too. And I have some songs that I need to learn on the drums. So I'm going to have a busy, active weekend and hopefully not work too much.
Yeah, right on. Well, I'm here today with Michael Marckx, a brand and marketing strategist and founder of Monuments of Cycling. It's the largest gravel bike racing series in the world, I understand, which features 7 Belgian Waffle Rides throughout North America. Is that the case? Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah. When I was CEO at SPY, the first year, I created this marketing, experiential marketing thing where we offered this really crazy bike ride. You start by eating a bunch of waffles, then you'd ride your bike 130 miles through dirt and sand and rocks and barricades and really, really challenging course. Then you'd come back, eat more waffles, drink Belgian ale, and party.
That sounds amazing. What's funny is I thought maybe you ate the waffles at the end, but no, you got to eat them beforehand.
You can eat them anytime you want, even during.
Okay.
So that race turned into something really big here in San Diego. So when I left SPY after 5 years, I took that and built upon it. So we had one big event in San Diego, and then we added another and another and another. So now they're all over North America. Europe is the next frontier for us. But it's a silly name, but it's a really, really challenging bike race, oftentimes with a very big prize purse. And we've done a bunch of films in support of the various years of the events. And I should mention that gravel is the fastest growing segment of the bike industry. So there's a bit of a rising tide there, although the bike industry itself is really suffering, perhaps even more so than the surf industry.
Oh, geez.
It's really, really bad. So it's an interesting time to be in that sector.
Yeah, well, I've got a buddy who does some gravel riding. I had only recently learned about it, so that sounds really exciting. I see your posts on it. It sounds really fun, and it seems like you have always sort of balanced this, found the balance between sort of fun but rigorous activity, being outdoors, business, branding. So we're going to dive into all of that because you spent 30 years or more in leadership roles as CMO, CEO, and VP across culture, action sports, and outdoor industries. You've worked across all different categories and segments of business and products, but you're helping brands clarify their identity, accelerate growth, build meaningful connections with their audience. I know that's a lot, and we'll get into it all. But
that's too much.
Maybe too much, right? No, you're busy for sure. But I guess what besides work though, what is keeping you busy these days? Is it surfing and being on your bike and playing drums still? What is it?
I did surf this week and ride the bike and practice the drums, but our daughter's home from school for 1 month before she goes back to Columbia. So doing things with her is really where, this month is dedicated to whatever she wants to do. Her brother moved back to New York because he got into a master's program there after graduating from NYU. So I've only got a couple more weeks with her, and I'm going to maximize that summertime. And then they'll both be in New York, and I'll got to figure out how do I go back and forth to visit them as much as I can. And I love going to New York. I keep a bike there. We have access to surfboards. So it's fun to go back and forth, but that's what I'm focused on now. That and like building 2026 already for the event series.
Yeah. And I can't help but think if you've got your bike over there, you've got surfboards, next comes an apartment. Before you know, you're a transplant into New York City, right? Is that right around the corner?
Yep. We're on that track.
Oh, man.
And it's kind of fun.
Yeah. And yes, because you've always been a West Coaster, right? Have you been to California?
True. Yeah, always SoCal, but various brands that I worked at, I would go to New York all the time. I mean, at OP, I would go 5 times a year to New York.
Oh, wow.
It was super fun.
Yeah.
And so that was more as an adult where I could check out the different neighborhoods and understand where I'd want to live and go to cool places. And then there's so many media outlets and friends there that every night you're busy with somebody.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
cool.
it is cool. I love it back there. On, visiting time with your daughter, I almost feel like I needed another podcast that is really focused on sort of dad life and being a dad, because I saw a post as well of you spending time with your son as he's gotten older, golfing, and just how rich and meaningful your relationships with your kids are, especially as we get older, as they get older, as things evolve. That's a big part of your life, though, right? Being a dad and being there for them and building relationships with them.
It's the most fun stuff. Like that post was about quantity of time equals quality.
Yeah.
Those meals that you enjoy together, it's not a special occasion. You're just enjoying a meal. Or the drive in the car to Orange County or Riverside for a soccer tournament. That's just quantity of time, but there's value in the colorful conversations that manifest in that time together. Going surfing together, going to shows together, all of those things accumulate into experiences that we take on board and carry with us in the most positive ways. So I know the same thing growing up, the punctuating moments of my life where I still have that mental Polaroid was all based on interesting things we were doing as a family.
Yeah. I love that idea of just sort of putting in the reps, right? The more reps that you put in, the better the result.
Yeah. And I guess it's juxtaposed to, hey, we're going to have an Instagram moment. We're at the beach and let's take a shot together and post that. And it's actually about not having the phone.
It's about being at the beach.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And removing those trappings and like literally harking back to the kids' young life of surfing Beacons, which is right by our house. There were no phones at the beach. We were there all day if the waves were good. It was really magnificent. And I want to hark back to those days. And my kids, not to prattle on too much about it, but my kids don't really have an interest in their phones very much.
Oh, good for them.
And they're also interested in spending that time together. Like they admonish us if we bring our phones out, which is great.
Nice. Yes.
And they don't have the same interest that kids their age do, but I think that maybe that demographic, they're not drinking as much, or they're drinking differently. They're more conscientious about their health and wellness. The phone and Instagram, social media isn't as important to their generation. So the pendulum's swinging back with them, which is really kind of neat to see.
Yeah. Well, I feel like we'll need a second conversation then to talk about generational shifts and parenting and sort of watching and becoming a parent to adults. That's also weird. But Michael, you and I first connected thanks to a mutual friend, Mark Marovich, when you guys were launching your blog, The Greener Blue, featuring ocean and sustainability articles, thought pieces. And then we connected again in 2018 when you had me as a sustainability speaker for your series that you were doing it when you were at Nixon called 701 Social Club. You were putting some emphasis on sustainability. So I guess my first sort of professional question is you live right near, surf spots. You've been in the ocean for most of your life, but has sustainability and environmentalism always been something you've tried to prioritize in your roles, would you say?
Not always, but I came into it somewhat honestly in that I was surfing like after it rained, during the rain, I would get sick all the time. And this is when I first got involved with Surfrider. And there was actually a dilemma that the Marines were going to build some officer housing right by Nixon's Western White House. And that was going to impact the waves because it was going to impact the creek there and how it empties into lowers and uppers. And that really, I surfed lowers every day, sometimes 3 times a day when I was at Surfing Magazine. So I started getting interested. Number one, why am I getting sick? So what's happening upstream that's causing that? And 2, what are the impacts to the ocean, beaches, and waves that are happening all over? So I got involved with Surfrider, was elected to the board of directors, and then the board of directors elected me to be the chairman of the board, which I did for about 4 years. And there's a little bit of overlap at SPY. But once I got on the board, then sustainability became the watchword for me.
Yeah.
And that's when Mark and I started working on that. Incidentally, Mark's mom and my mom were good friends, from a very, very long time ago. And that's how we met.
Oh, that's
but
cool.
We shared an interest in surfing and skateboarding, and particularly sustainability. So we started that. And that became too unwieldy because here I was at Globe International working on about 12 brands, doing sustainable projects.
Yeah.
But with the hope of more holistically over time, changing how the products are made, what materials we make, how we go about going to market with things, and then how do we do our carbon offset? Like when I was running the WSL events, which was WCT back then, we were bringing people to Fiji. So there was a huge carbon footprint. So we'd literally plant a forest in, say, Nicaragua to offset that. But so all of those things, little pieces that you would hope over time would make you more like Yvon Chouinard, where you're doing all the right things. And now all the brands are following suit. It may cost the brand a little bit more money, but it's way better for everybody involved. And I think that those projects got people to look at us differently. Then once I was was chairman of the board of Surfrider, you have to live your life. If you're in that role, you have to shun the plastic bags and the waste and the garbage.
You got to walk the walk.
Yeah, you need to. And of course, I would travel and meet with people, chapters all over. We had 100+ chapters. So you're going and you're meeting all these people that are just like you, that are fighting in their backyard for looking for some sort of victory to overcome the development or just terrible stuff entering the water from upstream.
Yeah.
So it became very important to me. And every brand I would go to, I would foster the sustainability part. I would create products like the greenest sunglasses ever created, the greenest sandals ever created, just stuff like that, like putting the benchmark up there really high.
Yeah.
I tried to do that with Adidas to create the most, because I ran a global division for Adidas, their watches. And I really wanted to create the most green watch ever. And working with Adidas was both inspiring and challenging. To get something like that done, I never got done during the tenure that I had there. But like working on that stuff, if you continually try to do that stuff, you learn that every week there's some new option for you to employ that's more sustainable, more thoughtful, and better for everyone involved.
Yeah. The more you know, the more you can do. You mentioned a few of these brands. You've led marketing and brand strategy, or you've been an executive with brands, like you said, like Adidas, Nixon, Billabong, Spy, OP, Surfing Magazine, Globe International. You've helped all these brands, successfully launch and scale. With all of that under your belt, what does a typical day-to-day look like for you? Are you doing the same kind of work that you were doing with those brands? Are you doing something different? I know you've got the cycling, the tour, but what's a typical day look like for you?
First, I get up and drink something healthy and get sunlight into my eyes.
Yes.
Then maybe later I'll have a mud water or a coffee or, something. And then I get busy. I mean, sometimes I'm still in bed and I'm doing emails, which I do not recommend. But then
Off the record.
Then get at the desk, and the events are always requiring attention because you're dealing with sponsors and athletes and communication and social work, social media, permitting. Like, it's endless. And every year it gets harder because there's more insurance flags and things that make it challenging. And then you also want to bring in alcohol to every one of those experiences. So that's another set of hoops to go through. The event here in San Diego, we get Caltrans, every city, so 6 cities, the county, every park that we touch, private landowners. We have to get all of them to approve a 130-mile route in order for us to get the permit. And so the day's filled with that. And then I take the cycling cap off and work in these other brands, all from the same sort of point of view of branding, brand strategy, and then what does the marketing look like that's in support of that brand strategy? So a lot of times I'm literally creating the first brand Bible that a brand has ever had, which seems criminal to me, but it's also like been wonderful for me because they knock on the door. Hey, Michael, we need help with the brand. We're going out of business. Okay, let me do a brand audit. Let me check out what you've got going on and see where the issues may be. Much as a doctor would come in and examine you and try and figure out what the ailments are, and then write a prescription for success. And then a lot of times they want to hire you, but ultimately, almost every time the brand does not have a vision, a mission, or core values. They're just like, hey, we make ugly black wrap sunglasses for men.
Yeah.
And that's what they believe they are. And they're not. That was, Spy, for instance.
Yeah.
So it's about, okay, who are we? Where do we want to take this world with us? And how are we going to do that? What are the core values? Sustainability should always be one of them. And then build the foundation of a brand, which could end up being 110 pages of brand work.
Yeah.
That then everyone in the company gets a copy of. And then once a week, you go over one facet of that to remind people what we're doing together, what the mission is, why it's such a great thing to do.
Yeah.
And then working on, well, what do the campaigns look like that are in support of this brand proposition? So that's the stuff that I mainly work on. And then I teach branding and marketing at San Diego State University and a couple others fairly regularly. That forces me to keep my chops up. I got to woodshed the marketing stuff because I got to go and teach it. And these kids are sharp.
Yeah.
Not unlike my kids that question everything. And you got to be ready with the answers. Otherwise, they're going to call you boomer and, boo at you. But usually they're really cool. And I end up, either helping them get gigs or helping them fashion the right mindset to go about addressing their career and where they want it to go.
Yeah. Well, they're lucky to have you as a teacher. And what's crazy is, you're juggling all that, just the enforcement that you talked about with that brand Bible too, that it takes, like, it's one thing to build it. You're right. They probably should have had it in the first place, but you come in, you build it, but then you've got to enforce it and make sure that everybody is aligned on it, understand it, that we're integrating it into the system.
Yeah.
I mean, you're so busy then with all of these different things. If I look at all you've done and that you're doing now, I know from your TEDx talk that you gave and in our previous conversations, that if we were to rewind the clock, this isn't necessarily where you might have seen yourself, right? You are an Ironman athlete with a side hustle being a drummer. How did you end up here kind of being this, this brand strategy expert? Walk us through the story.
It was all serendipity, if you will. I ended up going to UC Irvine. I had applied to all these other schools and I had to make a choice. And then my dad strategically took me to UCI on a day when there were great waves, took me down to Newport and goes, "This is where you'd surf every day, son." And it was firing.
Yeah. And I mean, it's a mere, 7-8 miles away kind of ish, something like that? Not far.
Super close.
Yeah.
Because I ended up living all but my freshman year at the beach surfing.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I wanted to do I wanted to do architecture. They didn't offer that, so I did civil engineering. And then I also wanted to surf competitively, and I was doing other things, including playing a lot of music. So I was like, well, what's the easiest thing I can do? I can get an econ degree. But I was also doing a lot of art and in the drama department too, which is, adjacent to the art. And one year, the entire year, I spent doing a rock opera as a drummer in the rock opera at UCI.
Cool. Yeah.
Every year I had multiple art classes. So I was getting this broad experience, a collegiate experience.
Yeah.
And I walked away with an econ degree, and I haven't used any of it since. But being president of the fraternity, treasurer of the fraternity, on the different teams that I played on, playing music every week on campus or near, I got this incredible experience. My roommate went on from high school, I went with my buddy Tom Martin to the dorms, and Tom's career became that of writing comedy. And then he had an incredible career with various TV shows, all of which you've heard, matriculating up to Saturday Night Live, and then The Simpsons, and then lead screenwriter of The Simpsons. So he won 3 Emmys there. But his whole UCI experience was the same thing. Like, you do everything else, and you just make sure that you get your degree. And then you've got this rich thing to lean back on, whether it's the network that you make at school, the jobs that become available to you that then become a greater part of your network, or just the experience of being socially adept to be able to persuade people that you have a good idea and you'd like them to buy into it, which is so much what we end up doing in marketing. As a young marketer, you have all these ideas and you've got to report up to somebody and say, let's do this and let's do that. And they may say, no, that doesn't fit the guardrails, which is a good answer. Oh, that's really good. Why don't you write a proposal and then present it to the rest of us? Being persuasive, able to communicate, being well-rounded in your experience, those things all avail to you tools that you can use in your initial jobs that you begin your career with, and then you only enhance them at each new place that you go. Yeah. But I was lucky to be exposed to a lot, and then became a professional triathlete right out of college. I was racing bikes, swimming and running, so it was the natural thing to do. I made the U.S. national team right after I graduated, went and raced the World Championships, won the Amateur World Championships, then went to Europe to race, came back, turned pro, got hit by a car. Oh. That derailed my athletic career. Yeah. I went to go work in the warehouse of my main sponsor. So really, my first job was working in the warehouse of my main sponsor because I was going through 18 months of rehab.
And you were probably devastated, I would imagine, because the dream had kind of fallen through.
Yeah, here I was at night playing music and traveling. During the day I was training, and somewhere in between I'd sleep. And it was this rich duality of living, oftentimes that were at odds with each other. But getting hit by the car, that took away the athletic side of it. So I started focusing on the music side. And I've never lost touch of that side of me. And it's factored into my career every decade since. But during that time when I was working in the warehouse, my sister bought me a visit to a psychic. She had had a great time with the psychic. Okay. She's like, Mikey, you got to try this.
So it was out of the blue. It was out of the blue. Just like, hey, you'd like this. Okay.
And, you walk into those things somewhat skeptical as you're like, come on. And I immediately walk into this foyer. This beautiful woman greets me. And she goes, hey, look, before we go into the den, before we start, I just want you to know your dad is going to live. And I was like, oh, my God, how did you know that my dad is dying? She said, oh, wow. Michael, I'm a psychic.
Oh, wow.
Then she took me into her office and began to tell me all the worst things that I didn't want to hear. You're in 2 bands. She knew that. She goes, you're not going to go on to success with either of them, but one of them is going to go on to great success.
Without you?
Yeah, and that one became Calexico.
Oh, wow.
Joey Burns from UC Irvine also. And then the other one, I don't even want to say which band it was, but the record deal that we had imploded. She told me everything. She's like, you're never going to win another world championship. You're not going to have success doing all these things. Just went through it all with me. And then she goes, geez, I know you must be disappointed, but here's something. You are going to be tremendously successful at business. And I was like, no, I work in a warehouse. I'm either going to be a musician or an athlete.
But you've got your econ degree.
Yeah, my dad is a businessman. Like my dad was part of the first mainframe sale to UCI. So he was very familiar with the campus and computer science, and he was happy for me to go there because he was running a division for IBM back then.
Wow.
Anyway, I could go on about these things, but the end of it, she said, you're going to be tremendously successful at business. And I was like, oh. Then she's walking me out. We're in that foyer again where she told me my dad was going to live. And she goes, oh, one more thing. Tomorrow the phone's going to ring. The guy calling, his name begins with an S. His hair's down to here. he's going to offer you a job and you must take that job.
I mean, this is like a movie script.
Yeah, or worse.
Yeah, or worse.
A bad one. And then, sure enough, the phone rang the next day. A guy named Scott called me with an opportunity to work on the Iron Man. And since I had quite a lot of knowledge of that and some event experience from music festivals that I'd put on at UCI, they hired me, and that transformed everything about my career from that moment on. And I learned to like embrace the idea that, hey, maybe I can include athleticism or sports and music into my career. It doesn't mean that I have to be doing them, but I can utilize my knowledge and skills in those areas to inform what I do professionally. And that led me to working at ASR, an outdoor retailer, where I was the marketing director and really got to be a part of the regeneration of those two, the resuscitation of those two brands. And then I got the knock on the door. Hey, come work with us at Surfing Magazine. We're number 2 and we really want to be number 1. And we think that your branded approach to building something can have us transcend surfer. So I presented a brand plan, which who would ever think of like, what's a brand plan for a magazine? Why would you do that?
Yeah.
And Nick Carroll, who was the editor-in-chief, and Bob Mignona was the publisher at the time. They're like, this is great, let's get busy. And then from there, once we got busy, literally we outgrew Surfer. Our average page value was more. We sold more magazines. And it was by being focused. The brand was all over the place before, covered everything about surfing, including longboarding and boogie boarding. And the transition for the brand was we only talk about high performance surfing, which at the time was the most interesting and exciting part about surfing, because during that era, we started riding above the wave. So we created the Surfing Magazine Air Show series. Yeah,
that's right.
And like trying to get people to boost really high, which is now like a natural part of the professional circuit. So that brand application at surfing really worked. Then I got to go do something similar at Blue Torch, the TV show.
Okay.
Putting on a daily action sports TV show, doing all the commercials. I was in charge of entertainment and branding. And then I gave a proposal to Dick Baker when he was struggling with the OP brand. And I had created the OP Pro guide for him the year before. And I was like, hey, I see you're struggling with this brand. I have some ideas. Why don't you hire me and I'll transform the organization with you? So he did. And he's like, I presented my ideas and he's like freaked out because he's the Garmento guy. You know, he had run Calvin Klein and Esprit and, had this storied career as a CEO in the garment world. And he's like, I'll give you 6 months. If this doesn't work, you're out of here. And sure enough, it worked dramatically. And we went from 120 million to 240 million in exactly 3 years.
Wow.
And it was all by brand, like treating the brand in a more interesting, modern way and compartmentalizing things so that like the hokey OP stuff would be sold at Kohl's or, down the distribution pyramid. We never paid attention to that. We only marketed the upper end of the brand. So the OP Classic stuff that showed up at the boutiques like Fred Siegel and Bergdorf Goodman and Barney's. And then just underneath that was like the more action sportsy brand. Anyway, what we did with the brand distribution and the brand pyramid, including sub-brands, all of that worked magically. So we sold the brand exactly 3 years after the date that I started. And then I stayed on another year as a consultant, but then I went to Globe International because they wanted the same sort of resuscitation. And that was a 6.5 year gig there, which led to Surf Rider Foundation and at least being chairman of the board.
I've got a couple questions in there. With all of this, I guess, did you have sort of what was your moment when you realized that you could do this branding, right? When your friend calls you and says, "Hey, I want you to, jump on with us to do this thing for Iron Man," that must have taken a little bit of of overcoming a bit of, well, I can't do that. That's not my jam. I've got an econ background. I'm a drummer. I'm an athlete. What was your tipping point to kind of get you to go, no, I got this. Let's do this.
Yeah, these are the same questions that any young graduate poses to themselves. Like, how am I going to do this? And the job seems too difficult. And they fret about it going into it. Mm-hmm. So all I knew is that I had event experience and had been a professional triathlete. So I knew the animals that I was hanging with and how to communicate with them. But the most important thing was going into it as a student, not like, hey, I'm here, I know what I'm doing. It's more like, hey, I'm here to learn, and I'm going to do everything I can to do the best at this gig, but I'm going to just take on everything I can. I'm going to work extra hours. I'm going to do extra credit. I'm really going to absorb everything that I can, and then bring forth directives that everyone can buy off on. So any new gig that you have, it's going to freak you out. It's going to seem like it's too much. Then you get in and you apply yourself and you learn and you look for mentors within the building that can help cheer you on and avoid the ones that try and bring you down, because there's always that counterpart in the company culture. There's always the Debbie Downer or the dude that's just like negative. Yeah, and as a CEO, those are the guys we look to remove. But if you, as a young person just starting your career out, go into it like, I'm going to learn as much as I can. And part of that process is finding mentors within that building that can help fashion your career. Because basically you want, like what happened to me, someone to tap you on the shoulder and say, hey, can you do that over here?
And I want to know, so that leads me to my next question then. What do you think it was that got people to tap you on the shoulder? Was it that obviously you were curious, you're asking questions, finding mentors, but there had to be then, to get the next job, was it deliverable, the way you executed, that people liked working with you? Was it the product? Was it your creative vision? What do you think continued to have people tap you on the shoulder and one thing lead to the next?
Well, it's simple. One thing is you do a good job. Other people notice it. They ask who did that. But probably more importantly, like I would get hired to be a drummer in different bands because I was reliable. Not the best drummer, but reliable. I'd show up, I'd know the material. I wasn't strung out on heroin. Typically, I would get hired to be a drummer because someone was strung out on heroin or somebody broke their wrist because they were strung out on heroin. These really great bands that were on tour would be missing a drummer. And because I was playing with all these bands in this small little insular world, not different than, say, the surf industry when you and I began, where it was Orange County. So all of a sudden, I'm trading drumsticks with like Taylor Hawkins and Dean Butterworth, and got to play with General Public and Jack Johnson and a lot of really cool bands.
Wow.
Not because I was the best, but because I was reliable and easy to get on with. And I think that's what you want to bring into any environment. You don't want to be a challenge. You want to be inspirational. You want to be a fountain of ideas. And the only way that you can do that is by immersing yourself in that culture, learning as much as you can, what music is moving this group of people, what are their tastes, how have the color palettes changed from this season to the next season, and basically paying attention to every single thing that can go into a brand and trying to learn as much as you can, and then taking what you learn and crafting ideas or crafting creative briefs or strategic documents, the annual strategic document. Yeah. Like if you apply yourself to those things, there's so much to do, and you can't have AI do it. You have to do it because you have to go out and listen to the music. You have to go out and be party to what young people are doing if that's the audience you're wishing to communicate with. Yeah, you have to be on top of that. And the older you get, the more challenging it is. I was really grateful to have my kids active in such a way when my career was more focused on turning around companies and singularly focused on one brand at a time.
Yeah.
They would always tell me what worked and what didn't work from their 13, 14, 15, 16-year-old minds.
Yeah. Is there a connect? What's the connection to music? I can't help but think, you as that reliable drummer. What's the analogy between being a reliable drummer in a band, just being a drummer in general, and to what you're doing in business with branding and marketing? How do you connect those two for me? There's got to be some similarities.
Well, I think here's one. I would often be chosen by the band to be the one to do the promoting. So I would have to make the flyers. I would have to knock on doors. This is before we had the digital realm to be able to promote.
Yeah.
I would have to organize the recordings that say, would we play live at the Belly Up, and then we'd make an album, or figuring out ways to get people interested in us, which is marketing. Just so happens that I'm in the band, but I'm also doing the flyers and handing them out and posting posters and getting to know people one by one, getting to know the talent agents at all the different venues throughout LA. So that's marketing. So I had that. Plus then I show up and I'm the drummer. Mm-hmm. And not the best drummer, but I'm the drummer that's the glue that keeps it all together.
Yeah.
And so going through that in college and after college, I became a marketing person because I started learning what works, what imagery, what places are compelling, what words do we use to compel people. And you have to get more and more clever, which once I got to the various brands that I worked at, I always looked to push the envelope with marketing, and did a lot of that at OP and nearly lost my job for it. But ultimately, some of the most noteworthy things I've done have been when I've been pushing the boundary, like the disinformation campaign with Secret Machine that was extremely elaborate. Surf film that became the largest selling surf DVD of all time at the time. And it was based on a clever deception campaign that involved Sonny Miller. And the essence of it was we had Sonny promoting what we were doing with all these great athletes. And then he wrote a press release. Well, I wrote it, but he signed it. Mm-hmm. That said, I'm removing myself from this project. These guys are using machines to do things. This is way before AI. So basically pointing out that, we were cheating, that the surfers weren't really getting that high of air. They weren't in the barrel that long. Yeah. Like that we were deceiving people with this new secret machine. And basically what we were doing is building this tongue-in-cheek, campy surf film with PT as Dr. Strangelove type character. We called him Dr. Surfwell. And then we had all these fantastic surfers that we did these incredible vignettes with, and had a great music track. So the picketing that we had done at the US Open, and the picketing at the movie premiere, and the false websites, or the websites that had disinformation, all of that was like pushing the envelope, being creative, and deceiving the entire surf industry. So after the premiere, Transworld Media, Transworld Business, which existed then, wrote an entire front page story about the art of deceit. I don't like that word, but we manipulated people into behaving in a certain way. Yeah. It was fantastic. Huh. Those are the things I like to do, just like the Happy Lens with Spy. It was disruptive, crazy, somewhat risque. Yeah. And so it turned a lot of people on. It turned some people off, but it turned way more people on. And so we had really great success by way of the Happy Lens and the happy culture that we propagated throughout those 5 years. And it was super fun to have a team, because when I started, I had to get rid of 32 people on a staff of 106 at the time.
Ouch. After
a brand audit. But then literally within a month, I had 28 of those roles filled with people that were excited about happiness, the Happy Lens, about, this new version of Spy that was much more aligned with the original Spy that started out in 1994.
Yeah.
But it was the team that collaborated together, that followed the briefs, that stayed on the guardrails, that really made us, we had 15 quarters in a row of year-over-year growth, where the 5 CEOs before me had lost collectively $55 million.
Jeez.
So it was a super fun turnaround story, and it only could have happened by a legion of people all believing the same thing and making magic happen.
And there's the band analogy, right? Like when you jam, when everybody's working on the same, in rhythm with each other, in sync with each other, you're collaborating, then that's when it all works. Michael, I call this show The Underswell because I really believe that underneath, as you've pointed out, all the big moments, underneath all the things that show up on our resume and in our bio, are all these small things in between, underneath the surface. So we're going to take a break, and when we come back, I want to ask you what's been underneath the surface for you this whole time. Like what has really driven you and or prepared you for each new chapter. So hang tight. We'll be right back. Hi, everyone. I hope you're enjoying the episode. I'm always so inspired and motivated by these career stories, and I hope you are too. And I wonder, are you looking to be featured on the show? Each week, I chat with an invited guest who is an expert in their space or who has compiled a stellar resume. If you fit that description and are interested in being a guest, just hit me up at Derek Sabori on LinkedIn. And here's something else to consider. This show platform is for hire. I build professional and personal podcast profiles for people who are looking to stand out in a crowded marketplace. You've heard my guests say it's your personality, the way you connect with people, and your ability to relate and communicate that will help land that next job, client, or customer. So let's show off your personality, not just your resume, and let's do it on a podcast. Head over to theunderswell.com to learn more. And now back to the show. Michael, before the break, I was trying to get at you to try to find out what's underneath the surface, sort of this idea that I call the underswell. What do you think has been under the surface for you this whole time? What's driving you? Is there sort of a theme behind everything that you do that keeps you moving forward? Talk to me a little bit about that. What's underneath it all for you?
I think I may not be different than most males in this regard, but most males don't know it. And that is, from a young age, I wanted to impress my dad. My dad was a fantastic athlete, a marathon runner, cyclist, had a great career of over 30 years with IBM. This living example of consistency, always being there. He used to get me up at 4:15 every morning to go running.
Wow.
And then later, once I became 16, if the waves weren't good, I'd go running with him. But if they were good, I'd leave the house at 4:15 and go surf. For me, I ran my first marathon when I was 12. And
Jeez.
That's not saying anything because my brothers did it when they were 8.
Wow. So this is in the blood. This is in the genes for you.
All 6 of us in my family were marathon runners. And to us, it was kind of normal. In Palos Verdes, where we grew up, there was this Palos Verdes marathon that nurtured running talent, and it was woven into the intermediate schools where we'd run the mile every week, timed. And it was just a part of the culture. And there was this huge group called the PV Pacers of families that ran together. So we'd go there 2 or 3 times a week and run with all these people. So they're all like 12-year-olds too, just like me.
Yeah.
Various ages. But so running a marathon was like not a big deal. And I ran that marathon 31 years in a row, even if I didn't train for it certain years. Like I remember coming home from UCI and having not trained at all, but like it's the beginning of the summer and I got to do the marathon again. And my mom would always go, "Are you sure you want to keep this streak alive?" And I'd say, yeah, I do, Mom. But that finishing a marathon then gave me the idea, well, a marathon's kind of a big deal, but I can run 50 miles and I can paddle my surfboard from Palos Verdes to Catalina or Catalina to Palos Verdes, or just do a 20-mile round trip around the peninsula. And that didn't seem abnormal. And I'd be out there. Sometimes I'd go for 35 miles and be gone for, 6 hours.
Wow.
And then I'd do the same on my bike. I'd go ride 200 miles. So you asked what the sort of underswell for me is. It was always like, what more can I do? What adventures can I live? How can I test myself beyond that which is normal? So to a weird level.
Yeah.
People call me weird. In college, they just called me Psycho. So there was that, and then the curiosity of learning, particularly when it came to business. Once the psychic said that's your fate, I was like, oh. Then I started reading books, the 22 Immutable Laws of Marketing, and just old books back then that edified me in my process. And I just started reading everything that I could.
You embraced it.
Yeah, and then when you do that, it begets more interest and more assimilation, more aspiration to learn. It's the same thing with drumming. It's also the same thing with riding your bike. Like if you put in a good training block and you see the results, you want to do it more.
Right.
It's no different in life, whether you're working on a 360 and surfing, like you keep doing it until it happens. Skateboarding is even more that way.
Yeah.
Like you fail, and eventually you succeed. And it's like, wow, you don't even remember the failures. Golf is the same way. You just remember the hole that you're on right now. Don't remember the last one.
Yeah.
I remember Paul Nadet telling me a long time ago, he's like, Michael, I failed 7 times before I actually succeeded with different businesses before he, became the patron of the surf industry
that he is now. Yeah. And nobody remembers those stories, those failures,
but he failed a ton
he remembers them. Yeah.
And then he learns from them. Yeah.
Yeah. So we have to go through those failures. I think that's so interesting. You've mentioned multiple times here your experience at UC Irvine, fellow anteater myself, right? So zot to all our anteaters out there. And your family has deep University of California affiliations. But how important, I think you've expressed how it was, so I guess I'll frame this up 2 ways in terms of how important was your college experience to you and your career? How do your kids feel about it? And I guess how to anybody who's second guessing college these days, what are your thoughts and advice for them? So sort of any angle you want to that question or those questions.
I was a shy, geeky, artistic kid that ran marathons and surfed and kept to himself. I played soccer too, so I was busy, but I was never the loud kid. Right? I was the reliable drummer in the corner.
There we go. Yep.
So I get to UCI and I'm just thinking I'm just going to hide just like I did in high school. And then I got sucked into this fraternity, rushing a fraternity. And by a guy who had gone to my high school, was a year ahead of me, got me involved in that. And Tom Martin, my friend, the screenwriter, and a few other guys that are really great. And we still keep in touch, so many of those individuals. But that getting into the fraternity and then getting on collegiate teams forced me to want to be different than I was and maybe be active. And I mean, I could go on about, I had a really interesting story where I got in the fraternity. Then I decided I wasn't going to pay any money. I wasn't going to be involved. And so for a couple of years, I amassed the biggest debt of anyone in the fraternity. So much so that when they did the fraternity team building exercise up at Arrowhead, they came and kidnapped me.
Oh, jeez.
Took me up there. And then, we went through all this team building stuff, and a lot of people didn't even know me other than they knew I was in the band that played everywhere.
Oh, funny.
And, they'd recruit me on the intramural teams.
Yeah.
But they did this exercise that was supposed to say there are leaders and there are followers, but we all have our place. And during this whole exercise, they arrived at for me, that I was the least likely to be president of the fraternity. Meaning I was the biggest deadbeat that owed the most amount of money, was least engaged, and they didn't know about. So I was like, kind of dejected. The next day they took me back home. That was Sunday. Then Monday is when you have your fraternity group meetings. Mm-hmm. And you would wear a tie. I just decided, screw these guys. I'm going to show up to the meeting. And everyone was like, whoa. And it turns out the treasurer, it was 6 months into his tenure, quit. And so they had to elect a new treasurer.
No way.
And a few people were nominated. And then somebody jokingly nominated me. the guy who owes the most amount of money.
Yeah, yeah.
And those two guys got up and talked, and then the GM, the president at that moment, said, "Okay, let's vote." And the guy raised his hand, point of order. We still haven't heard from the third candidate. So I got up, gave a speech. They elected me to be the treasurer, and I spent the next 6 months, I paid off my dues. So then it was easy for me to ask everyone else that owed money, "You're going to pay now too."
Yeah.
I created a music festival, got Coors to sponsor it. They gave us a lot of money to promote it. Then they gave us 50 kegs. We held it at Bomber Canyon. If you ever went up there above UC Irvine, this majestic, beautiful place to hold a concert. And then we went on to win the athletic award and the academic achievement. And the team of 120 fraternity brothers did all this amazing work. And I learned how to be a leader, because at the end of my 6 months of, this transformation of the financial sense of standing and stability the fraternity had, I was elected to be the president. So I gave my speech, and then they elected me. And 6 months earlier, they had all said I was the least likely to be president of the fraternity.
Yeah, yeah.
So sometimes we don't know the energy or the affect that we give off to other people, which is why in a corporate environment or even in a classroom, you should be self-aware of how you're interacting with people, how you're inspiring, that you're not talking over them, and genuinely getting along with people and making them feel comfortable with you so that you can have a better rapport that manifests greater opportunities together or, with other groups. So I learned all of that stuff. And so you asked me how UCI was helpful to me. That set me up to be productive in the realm of the surf industry, which became where I ended up going. Athletics, managing people, music, all of those things that I experienced during my time there were more edifying than any other period of time I've ever had. I've done nothing with econ.
Yeah, exactly.
But I have with art. I was the creative director at OP as well as the head of marketing. I've been involved with dramas. I've obviously toured with bands, and all of those things happened for me. I didn't plan any of them. And my dad wanted me to go on and work at IBM when I graduated. And I was like, well, Dad, I want to be a professional athlete, and then I'll go back and do that. My parents didn't like hearing that. Professional, they just thought, you're not going to be a drummer. You're not going to be a professional cyclist. You got to be a doctor or a lawyer or a businessman.
I love how transformational it sounds like it was. So I would imagine, your kids then followed in the same suit. I would guess that you would tell somebody, a young person, hey, it's worth it. Go through the experience. You never know what you're going to get out. You get exposure to so many different things, right? And as you said, it's not the degree. It's not exactly what you studied. It was the experience, and it set you up for really the rest of your career, it sounds like.
Absolutely. And if someone's equivocating about what they should study because they don't want to be an engineer, maybe they don't want to be a doctor, get an English degree.
Just get a degree.
But get the English degree so you learn how to communicate better than anyone else.
Yes, I love it. If you look back, Michael, on the last 5-10 years, even more, scanning all of the professional decisions you've made, what do you think that what have you learned about yourself? And I guess sort of what have been the biggest lessons that you've learned through all of this?
A couple times along the way, and my wife admonishes me about that. She says, you trust people too much. So there have been at least 3 places where I got burned for a significant amount of money. And in each instance, I thought I had learned a lesson, but then each one manifested in a different way. But then more recently, I started a bike shop on PCH with a restaurant and a coffee house. Just I've dreamed of doing something really cool like that.
Yeah.
And I had a partner who literally was the GM and ran the business. But what happened is that partner embezzled $500,000 over time
Oh,
from the
no.
business.
Oh,
And we ended up having to shut it down. I had to go to the police. I eventually got the FBI involved because he fled the country.
whoa.
So I ended up
Jeez.
paying the $500,000, which was a struggle and, still is when I think about it.
Yeah.
I've forgiven him, but the anxiety that I have from losing all that money still persists to this day. So it requires me to go back and watch my own TED Talk or read some of the things I've written to remind myself that, okay, that happened to you, but what are you going to do about it now? Are you going to ruminate on the past and how bad it was? Or are you going to get busy doing something new and interesting and learn from that mistake? I will tell you that I never want to go into business with anyone else again.
Oh, that's too bad. And I think it's like, it's like being hit by the car so early on. It's like those things happen to you. You have these bad, sort of these really critical moments where you're like, okay, that doesn't define me, and we're gonna kind of look the other way and say, well, what's ahead now? So you don't let it define you.
No, when I was at Globe, I was 90 miles into a 120-mile ride coming down Topanga Canyon. If you've ever gone on that narrow road, car pulls out, nearly kills me. At the last second, I flinched. I hit the very corner of his windshield, got catapulted to the other side of the road, unconscious a long time. Eventually, I come to, and I'm getting interviewed by a CHP officer. There's traffic everywhere because I'm blocking the entire road. The car that hit me hasn't moved, and my bike is inside the wheel well. And the cop's asking me, what's your name? I don't know. What year is it? I don't know. What town are you in? I don't know.
Oh, yikes.
And I got a picture of my family playing in the backyard. So I knew that I had a family. Didn't know their names or where they were. But then this really forceful inner chipmunk said, you have to quit your job. And I didn't even know what my job was. But when I got out of the hospital, I got medevac to UCLA after the ambulance took me to a field. Wow. And then had a lot of broken things and a severe brain injury that took like 18 months of psych therapy. But I went home and told my wife, I have to quit my job, and began working on it. And once I opened myself up to the universe that I'm not going to do this job that I'm finding misery in, I'm going to open myself up to the things that I love to do. Sure enough, the board of directors at Surfrider elected me to be chairman.
Wow.
Then the phone rang from a headhunter to go and turn around Spy. All of these great things happened after that terrible mishap with a car.
Interesting.
And then later in life, while I was at Spy, the guy who hit me was a lawyer. He wanted to become a judge. He reached out to my lawyer to say, hey, would your client mind if I reached out to them? I haven't been able to sleep at night the last 5 years. And I said, sure. And I chatted with the guy and I said, look, it was terrible what you did. Physically, I'll never be the same, but you offered to me opportunities to grow and reach in ways that I would have never happened. So I thank you for however the universe brought us together. No, you can't buy me a new bike. No, you can't send me any money. You can just remember to never feel bad about this again. Leave it behind you.
Wow.
And then we both felt better.
Wow. Yeah. Jeez. Oh, well, it's really inspiring and a good reminder to just, look at the bigger picture and, sometimes, I guess, forgive and forget and stay positive, or a lot of lessons to extract and pull from there, Michael. Let's wrap it up with, just some advice. I want to get some advice from you for those either younger people who are building their careers. They look at yours and they're like, wow, I'd really like a career like that. What are things that you really want people to know and remember and focus on? Give me, 3 things if you got them.
It kind of harks back to what we earlier spoke about, the consistency. Consistently showing up on time, consistently being easy to get on with, consistently providing solutions.
Yeah.
Being there on time, being there late. This consistency of that is really important. But as a branding and marketing geek, I always tell the students when they're going in to interview for that first real gig, the best thing you can do is turn the table on the person that's interviewing you with questions like, what's the vision of this company? Because they won't know. What's the mission? And the mission is basically how you're going to get to the vision, which is your version of heaven. Yeah. They don't know that. So all of a sudden, you're more astute for that opportunity than the HR person that's interviewing you. And then you ask questions like, well, what made you want to come and work at this company? What makes you happy to be here besides the paycheck? And ask questions that are meaningful, that will edify you and your process. Think about it as you're interviewing them as much as they're interviewing you. Don't be desperate to get the job. But if somebody gives you an opportunity, even if it's not perfect, go for it. Do the best you can, and someone will come along the way, tap you on the shoulder and say, we want you to come over here and do this with us.
Yeah.
It's so much easier to get hired when you're employed and people see you doing great work. You don't want to quit the job or lose the job, then you're not in a job and be applying for a job, right? That's a bad place to be in. Yes. You always want to go from one gig to another. And then, matriculate up in terms of how much you're getting paid and the scope of responsibility. And remember, you're always going to be afraid when you start that new role. But then over time, you have to look at it like it doesn't happen immediately. You and I did so many things before we got to this point, or we got to a point where we resemble who we are today. And it wasn't overnight. It wasn't 2 years. It wasn't even 10 years. So if you step back as a young person and look at what your career can become, think about it in long term and just be consistent with day-to-day stuff. How you get better as a runner is doing the work each and every day, sometimes twice a day. But then you give yourself rest too. So don't be afraid of taking a break from everything when you're working really hard, to give yourself that vacation and then come back to it with intensity and let everyone know that you're passionate about it, because that's the surest way to find the next gig. And that might be the stepping stone to something that's more aligned with where you want to be. And so I also encourage this in my TED Talk is start at the end. What's your version of heaven look like? And what are the possible ways to get there? What are the on-ramps to the next opportunity and the next that are directionally correct, that take you towards that something that you know you're going to love to do? Because it doesn't happen the first time, third time, or fifth time out. It eventuates.
Yeah. But you piece it together. And I love just listening to you. I couldn't help but thinking, like, none of this happens without that warehouse job. That warehouse job doesn't happen without the car accident. The car accident doesn't have, like, you can just keep working backwards. Yeah. And sometimes you can either work backwards intentionally or sometimes it's unintentional, but you got to start and you got to, take that first job. Michael, thank you so much. So many good stories, great stories that have so much, I think, wisdom and advice in them. I'm going to leave the last minute here for just an open mic. This is your opportunity for shout outs, call outs, as I call them, recommendations, apologies, whatever you want. Kind of, the mic is yours to take us home.
Shout out to our friend Alan Mazer, who also went to UC Irvine, and that's how I met him. He worked with me at a couple of different places along my career and became my best friend. So shout out to Alan. Hopefully he'll get to watch this too. I don't know that my kids will watch it because they don't think their dad is very cool. But if they do, Jahan and Romy, I hope that you take on some of the things that Derek and I talked about. Don't be in a hurry. Don't think it needs to happen now. Just do a good job. Do a good job in school and do a good job with this next job that you got, and enjoy it. Enjoy the process, and it will happen.
I love that. Enjoy the ride. Enjoy the ride.
And then, my TED Talk might be edifying and entertaining to some young people, because really I was telling it from the point of view of a 23-year-old. So there's nuggets of info in those 18 minutes that might change somebody's life.
For sure. I'll put the link to it in the show notes here, and we'll be sure to let people know where to find it. But just thanks a lot, Michael. Thanks for being here. Thanks for taking the time. Thanks for taking all the time that you did. We'll share this and get it out there. Hopefully your kids are going to watch it as well. It's long form. Hopefully if they can stick with us for an hour, but a lot of great stuff in here. So appreciate it. Have a great weekend, and I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, Derek.
Hey everyone, thanks for checking out the show. If you like what you heard, be sure to check back weekly, subscribe to the show, and if you want to be featured on the show, come hit us up at theunderswell.com. We'd love to hear from you.